Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. Hello, Dental 18 listeners. This is Kiera, and I've got the one and only Ryan Isaac with Dentist Advisors here today because we decided why not have a podcast with the two duo here. Ryan, how long have we known each other?
It's been I think it's been a long time. What would it be now? 7 years?
Be, yeah, probably.
20, maybe like 2014.
Well, I started the company in 2016, so I would have probably met you in 2017. And so we're at least 6 years into this relationship.
Wait, you started A-Team in 2016?
Yeah,
No, I met you before A-Team.
No, 16. I started in 16.
I know, I met you before Dental A-Team.
No. Well, Dental Consulting. It was Kiera's Dental Consulting, then morphed into it. So I started the company before anybody even knew it was a company, November 2016.
Okay, so you probably met slightly.
And I only know that because I ran a marathon in December 2016, and I only trained from October to December, and I'm still like regretting that decision in life.
Okay, all right. Well, and you've never done one since, so then you learned your lesson. You learned the lesson. Good for you.
But Ryan and I, we've gone way back. And if you guys don't know Ryan, please go listen to a lot of the podcasts we put together. They have an incredible podcast too. A lot of this audio will be on theirs. They've got the Dentist Money Show. But Ryan and I so let me just take you guys on a quick little journey of Kiera and Ryan. We met on he was at an event. I was there. He did a really funny presentation about cereal and that he weighs his cereal, which Ryan, I haven't told you. This is a new update.
I
weigh my food now.
Okay, good for you.
Tracking.
You are?
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I'm highly interested. Do you want to make that part of the show? Because I like this conversation,
the macro
actually.
Track. Anyway, so not yet, because we got to talk 401ks.
Okay.
But anyway, so Ryan and I, we met at this conference. I went to Ryan and said, hey, I just started this business and I don't really know what I'm doing. I remember being on an airplane and we did a share screen of like my number spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Ryan was nice, chatted with me and Jason and was like, listen, Kiera, you don't quite need a financial advisor, which is why I love you guys as financial advisors because it's a no stress, no pressure. Cool. I even have a client. You did a podcast with her. That's all I'll say. Okay. And she told me she loved working with you because she called you and you're like, you honestly don't need me. Let me give you some tips and on your way you go. So that's why I love you guys. And then you helped me grow as like a little baby plant. And now here I am. And I've hired you now as my financial advisor.
Bad analogy. We just got done talking about how I kill plants. Not a great analogy, but
I'm just a succulent. I require no effort.
Okay, very low. That's not also true. That's also not even close to true. I do remember, here's what I remember thinking. I have such like inconveniencing stranger anxiety. I do remember multiple times talking to you when you would be like sitting in your chair in the airplane and you were that person on a phone call. And I was like, I'm so embarrassed right now that I am making you be on the phone. You just hang up. We'll talk later.
And I never knew that about you because I'm like, this is the best. Like these people, I don't want to talk to them for the next 4 hours of this flight. So I'm going to be the jerk that's finishing up a conversation. Like I'm just so busy.
They'll be so annoyed.
They don't want to talk to me.
Yeah,
it was perfect for both
Good
of
for
us. Yeah,
it worked. Okay.
So anyway, Ryan is actually my financial advisor. I love them. I recommend them all the time. I think that you guys are truly the greatest, and we share clients back and forth. We help grow. You guys help invest those growths. And so this year it was kind of fun because, like, new business rookie over here, we've now hit the level of needing to bring a 401k into my business in Dental 18, which I'm super excited for my team. But you and I were chatting on my personal call with you. And we realized we should just hit record on this.
I know.
Because so many of my questions I have about 401k, I don't know anything about a 401k. And you said, this is like a lot of dentists and a lot of offices. Like, you guys, the words of 401k make no sense. Like, Ryan, what the heck? It's safe harbor. It's pension. It's like, there's so many words that honestly, I'm just curious. This is trivia. who made those dumb words up? Because they make absolute, utter no sense.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing like 200 years ago, these were made.
200 is probably a little soon. It's probably a little more recent than 200, but it's probably maybe close. Yeah. I'd have to Google it. The term 401k actually is just, it's just describing the actual provision number and section of the tax code that allows a tax deduction for retirement plan contribution. Literally, it's like section 401 part K.
No
like that's what it
way.
means. That's what it means.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
and you know what's funny about that? Because some people, and this is like a big TikTok thing, like TikTok financial advice these days. People will be selling like life insurance or crypto or something, and they'll be like, 401ks are bad investments. They get no returns, and it's like it's literally a tax code provision number. It's not an investment. You know,
So
it's just a tax code thing. So that's where the
obviously.
number comes from.
Interesting. I did not know this. So
Yeah.
Ryan was just helping me out because I'm setting up a 401k, and we were going through, for me as a smaller business. I won't exactly share the phrase you said because we would probably have to cut it from the audio of what you told me of. Kiera, I usually don't have this small of clients setting up 401k.
I said that to you? This small?
Yeah, because I have to like start up, like we have like smaller team members, and I'm like scrappy, and like I don't necessarily want to pay all these fees. And you're like, man, it's been a while because I'm on 401 Go. And we should probably cut this part. I'll have Sissy edit this part out.
Whatever you want. No, whatever you want. I want to say for the record though, if this stays in here, you are not running a small business. You have a small team, and it's a plan that's starting out from the beginning, which is actually, we should keep this because having a plan that's just starting, that's what it means. It's just a small plan that's just beginning, and a small team, a small amount of people who will be participating, that can impact where you set up the 401k. So I actually think that's relevant. Okay. Although, and it wasn't, I mean, we're not disclosing numbers, but in terms of like, a team is doing awesome, and you built a tremendously amazing business. So it's not small like that small.
Well, and
to clarify.
I'm glad we're clarifying this because I didn't want to take it as I'm small potatoes in your like amazing clients. I will say I appreciate that a lot. And you've taught me so much, and I'm grateful for that because the things I learn are literally learning from basics to advanced to be able to then take that to clients. And so, well, yes, I said it's small and we're like the smaller company, but it's also because I'm younger in my career. I also have a very different Ryan. I have my conversations with Ryan, I feel like we're listening to your favorite CD from like 1990 on repeat of the exact same song, because every call is the same conversation. I have these strong goals to retire by 40, not really like retire. And Ryan, I was talking to Jason last night after our call, and I'm like, Jay, Ryan just has to tell me the same advice every call and get me back on track for 30 days. And then I'll talk to him again about the same idea.
Yeah.
So that's where this comes from. But with that, I mean, I am a rookie to 401ks. So we wanted to really go through me being super open and vulnerable, Ryan being an awesome resource and expert. So for those of you in this spot of like, do I set up a 401k? Do I not? So Ryan, I know a lot of practices don't open 401ks. For me, I'm doing it because I maxed out my SEP, which was a huge tax strategy that you helped me figure out how to do with like how long my employees had been with me. But then like now there's really no other tax benefits for me to set anything up for retirement without a 401k as an employer. But like, I don't actually know how that happens. I just know I had a 3-year rule, and then I need to go to 401k. So I've been telling the team like, it's coming. I actually don't know why. So maybe you can help me and everyone else understand like how this works and why you have 3 years and then implement.
Yeah. So like and this is such a good conversation for our audience too, because these are very common, normal questions that tons of people have all the time. So in the world of, let's start with how people earn their money. When you have a job and you have an earned income, there's a tax rate that you have to pay. That's your earned income tax rate. And that's many, many Americans. If you have a job, a W-2, if you're a business owner of like in any service business, like you guys are in the dental industry, obviously, your pass-through entity, your S corps that you either get a W-2 from or that just kick you out your owner distributions, that's earned income. And why that matters is because the earned income tax rates are higher, and there's not as many, I don't like the word loopholes because it's just tax code. There's not as much advantageous tax code as, say, someone who is a hedge fund manager, which is really interesting why they have better tax codes than earned income average Americans, or a real estate developer or a professional real estate person. Or a person who's getting all of their income from capital gains. Maybe they're buying and selling businesses. Those have different tax codes, different write-offs. So the reason why I'm saying this is our audience, dentists, your company, you have high incomes at earned income rates. Now, through the business that you own, you have the ability to write some stuff off, but eventually, unless you're going to be pushing into crappy, shady investments that you shouldn't have anyway, or into like some tax gray areas that your CPA is not going to like, there's just a limit to the amount of tax deductions you can get. And the reality, as unsexy as this is, the biggest ongoing, like year over year proactive tax deduction you can get as a business owner with earned income is the retirement plan. For example, let's just use the 401k for example. The limit next year is $23,000 per person. So if you have an owner and a spouse on payroll, that's $46,000 of pre-tax money that drops your income. And someone's high earned income tax rates, that could be close to, maybe sometimes up close to a $20,000 tax deduction, 15 to 20, 15 to 18 tax deduction, somewhere in there. So which doesn't sound like much if your tax bill is $250,000 or $500,000,
Right.
But if you do that over an entire career, it's very, very meaningful. And it's not the only tax deduction. And clearly, if you buy something in the business, or you have like a 179 deduction, or you have like a building or something, there's some, depreciation or like cost seg studies, on real estate. There's some big like life event purchase deductions, but that's not an ongoing plan year over year. So the retirement plan, what I'm getting at, is likely going to be the biggest like proactive tax deduction you can get having earned income as a dentist, as a business owner. So that's why it's like really important to have the right one and always be thinking every single year if it's the correct one. Because like you said, you were running a SEP IRA before this, which is amazing until your employees qualify.
I was like, do I have Tiffany quit? Like, can I do this?
You
Like,
just
hey,
quit
Tiff,
and
could
come
you
back.
quit? And then
I'm
come
not
back
giving
and
that
I'll give you a
advice.
raise?
Yeah.
I definitely did not. I don't want people quitting. Tiff, don't listen to that.
Tiff's fine. I mean, the reality is, and this isn't against employees, it's just a SEP IRA is amazing until your employees qualify, because you have to give them straight across the board the exact same percentage you're giving yourself, which as a high earning business owner, it's usually 25% of salary. You can't do a retirement plan giving a dozen plus people 25% of their salaries retire. What's crazy though is I've met dentists who are running a SEP every single year for like 15 years.
No way.
And didn't really realize that they were giving away like six figures amount of money in a retirement plan to employees over years. Yeah, it was shocking to me. I've met several people like that.
Interesting.
So yours was the right plan until it wasn't. And then we implement something different. And that's why thinking about it at least every year with somebody is really important. At some point you might get a bigger one. You might need to change it completely like you did. At some point, a 401k might turn into something called a profit sharing plan, where you get additional contributions, or something called a pension or cash balance plan, where you get even more contributions. So it's worth looking at for any dentist, because that will be one of your biggest tax deductions you'll ever get. That's why it matters.
Well, and I think that was helpful for me to understand, because like you're right, there are minimal tax deductions that we can take. And I remember talking to my CPA about 2 years ago, and he's like, Kiera, you're basically tapped. And I'm like, that's lazy. Don't tell me that. I can definitely find different strategies.
Yeah, sure.
Because I love paying taxes for the country we live in, but I don't like paying unnecessarily. And so whatever I can do to set myself up. And also I like to build different asset classes. And so, yes, I've got the business. Yes, we've got other investments. I think the 401k is just you're saving up acorns for later on in life. And so, and also, this sounds funny, Ryan, but I do genuinely get excited. Like, I'm not excited to pay extra money. Like, I was looking at all of I'm doing projections for next year and putting in the 401k and putting in the advisor fee and putting in the fee. Like, I don't like adding extra line items, but it does make me kind of excited as an employer to be able to set my team up for like an opportunity to be more successful in their future. Like, they're helping me build my business. And so to be able to help make sure they're taken care of into retirement does give me a good feel good. I haven't paid the bill yet. So like we should do a repeat in a year
We'll
and
see
I'll
how you
tell you
feel.
like, screw that.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Well, hold on. You're bringing up something really important, which is, I mean, we started this by talking about the strategy of tax deductions for you as a business owner, but really taking care of a team and your employees. I mean, for most people, a retirement plan at work, especially one that has a match, might be some of their only savings they'll ever have.
Mm-hmm.
But it is enough. I mean, if you were able to max out a 401k at work your whole life and get a match from a company, that's a significant amount of money. And so it really actually does help people for sure.
And I just want to put it out there, employers, like I've had to learn going from a team member to an employer, your employees will never be super grateful of this. They're not going to look
Mm.
and be like, oh my gosh, Kiera's giving me a huge raise. Like, just so you know, their amount that they see is their dollar per hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to realize like what is the benefit to risk. For me, my reasons for doing it are threefold, and maybe Ryan has a fourth one that I don't realize I should be
Okay.
doing. So
Yeah, I don't know.
chime
We'll
in.
see.
One is for me to be able to have another spot to put tax savings. Like if I can do
Mhm.
this and set it up, that's one of my main reasons for doing it. For me, selfishly, and for my life personally. Two is for my team because I realized right now, especially with COVID, and then we had the great resignation. 401ks are a hot thing in retirement that shockingly is coming up in a lot of interviews now. And so
Mm.
I wasn't able to compete with best candidates because we weren't having it
Oh,
there. Have
yeah.
I held out and waited until like I can't max a SEP? For sure. I didn't incorporate it. I found different ways to get around it.
Sure.
But that was my second one. And the ways that I've gotten around it, just so you guys know, is I actually like Ryan is my financial advisor. He can tell you this. I had him come to a team activity. I've had him do team planning for my team. That was something I asked by hiring him of like, can you help my team out a little bit? I signed up for Dave Ramsey for the team. So that way they had access to some of these things that were
Cool.
lesser items. So I could still max my SEP while helping them. So that's number two. And then the third one is like, I'm going to just try it and see if I even like it. And if I don't have to continue. And I'd rather do that when my business is smaller than later on when I think it'd be harder to change and be as nimble as I currently am. So those are my three reasons for moving forward on the 401k.
Yeah, I like
Unless
it.
you see a fourth.
As a financial advisor, here's what I love about 401ks for my clients is that you can get the money if you needed it, right? You put it away, it's pre-tax. So if you pull money out, you have to pay tax on it. And if you're under 60 and you pull out the money, you have to pay a 10% penalty on top of the tax. So it's very expensive to pull money. The reason why I love 401ks is because it's really one of the last places a client's going to go pillage money. If they're, I mean, unless there's like a desperate emergency, it's like we can get some of that money, but it's like kind of, you're not going to touch it. And you know what's really fascinating? There's a lot of studies around which is funny because on social media they talk against the returns of 401ks, which is not. It's another concept that's kind of silly, but a lot of studies show that people get high returns in their 401ks because they know they can't touch it and they don't mess with it. In our business, a lot of our clients have multiple kinds of accounts. They have a 401k, they'll have like a brokerage account that they're putting money into all these places, and people are way more willing to try to mess with the brokerage account money because they can pull it in and out whenever they want. They want to like they'll change how they're behaving with their investments in a brokerage account based on the economy, their mood, their emotions, whatever. Way before they'll ever do. They don't even think about a 401k. It's like, I'm not touching this till I'm like 70. So as a financial advisor, I love it as a tool for wealth building because people leave it alone. And the number one way to get a good return with your investments, assuming you built a good portfolio in the first place, is to leave it alone. It's like the number one rule. So my number 4 on there would be I'd love them because people don't mess with them and they just put money in and then it does its thing and it actually is a benefit to people.
It's really smart. You just need to teach all your clients Kiera Dent's principle about brokerage account. And I feel like
Okay.
I've told Ryan, I think he's like there's the image of the cookie monster. And I sometimes call Ryan the money monster. I'm like, I don't know. I put money into this brokerage account, but like, I don't even know. So I treat a brokerage account like a 401k. So if
you
that's
do.
helpful,
Yeah, you do. Cause you're always like, can I even
fun.
get that money? I'm like, you literally can have it like tomorrow. Yes. You can have all of it. Every penny. Yes.
I don't know why it feels so stressful. Anyway, so if you guys want like an even better strategy, 401k and treat your brokerage account like a 401k.
Just send it and leave it alone.
I feel like
it
it's
really
like locked
is
down.
It's crazy though. Like once you build a decent portfolio that's, diversified and low cost, like just leaving it it makes literally all of the difference in the world, which sounds like the simplest job to do as an investor, but really our human emotions and behavior get in the way. I mean, that's what we know this. We know this with like business, health, fitness, exercise, like anything we try to stick to, our human behavior gets in the way. You just leave it. So the Kiera Dent principle of putting in there and believing that it never exists ever again. That's great. Just keep thinking
It's
that.
gonna be
And
a
then in
good
like
surprise.
20
Like, I mean,
years, it'll
I
be
get
like,
excited like when $20 are in my pocket, like, oh my gosh, I put on
yeah.
those winter coats. I mean, this is
Yeah.
gonna be like even better. Like, Ryan, I
You
honestly right
will.
now, I don't even know what's in there because I don't look at it in my
Perfect.
and it's
It's
in the
irrelevant.
Elements app even, but I'm like, nah, I
It's
can't even touch
irrelevant.
that. I look at it like it doesn't exist.
I
So
like that.
on that,
It is a good mindset though, honestly. So
there
good
you
for
guys
you.
go. There's a
Yeah.
tip that I didn't mean to give you.
Yeah.
Okay, so 401ks. This is where it got psychotic for me because I remember calling you. I called my CPA. My CPA recommended someone. Honestly, the reason why I went with Ryan's recommendation is because you guys manage my funds already. 401ks do get managed. And so for me, Ryan, you and I put it there, and this is Kiera. You guys are maybe different, but for me, I did not want at all another project on my hands. And I wanted the least amount of risk, the least amount of effort on my part with the lowest cost. Like I sound like
Hmm.
most people, but some people might want to
Give me the
DIY
best
this.
thing with the
Could
cheapest
you
cost. Yes.
please?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I opted to go. Like I went and met with a 401k person from my CPA. I asked Ryan, because at the end of the day, I can go Google search, but 401ks,
Hmm.
Ryan, tell me, can you just tell me the worst case scenario? Like, let's pretend I go set this up like straight up DIY. Like, can I
Okay.
go to jail for doing like what's
No.
like how bad can 401ks be? Because there's
Well,
this thing
okay.
called ERISA, but I don't actually
Yes.
know. There's like all
Yeah.
these
So
weird
let's
words.
talk about what it means to actually have a 401k and
Okay.
realize there's a lot of different types of retirement plans. I mean, if we were to list them, you would say that there's especially for a dental audience, you have simple IRAs, you have SEP IRAs, you have 401ks, you have various types of 401ks like a solo 401k. Then you have pensions, profit sharing plans, cash balance plans. But the 401k is very, very common. So let's talk about the logistics of setting up a plan. You technically can do everything yourself. I would never, ever recommend this. It's outsourceable for small amounts of money comparatively to an office collection. So it's irrelevant. Don't do it yourself, but you could. See, in a 401k, here's where it gets a little tricky. The 401k is overseen by multiple government bodies from the IRS, the Department of Labor. There's a whole governing body called ERISA, ERISA. I don't remember what that stands for. Something Securities Act, I'm sure. And what this means is it's a highly regulated um, thing. Number one, because the government gives you a tax deduction. So if they're going to give you something, they're going to be all over us for sure to make sure that like we don't, that we're doing everything right. And it's for the protection of employees. Retirement plans in the past, like 80s, 90s, even in the 2000s, have been abused by business owners where they'll set up things and exclude employees illegally to not have to pay them and put away their own money. So there's a lot of laws and protections around that. So when you set up a 401k, you should hire a company called a third-party administrator. You'll hear the acronym more often as TPA, third-party administrator. Their job is to make sure all this compliance stuff and the testing is done according to all the Department of Labor and IRS and ERISA rules. And also, there's an actual tax return that your 401k has to file every year. And it's called the 5500, and they file that for you. So technically, you could do your own record keeping. You could file your own 5500. You could do your own compliance testing and document form submission to the IRS and the Department of Labor to make sure you're all cool. But that'd be insane. That would be real. You can outsource a 401k to literally thousands of 401k companies out there. There's some content on our show. We've done like multiple shows on how to pick a 401k company. But when you go choose a third party administrator, here's some things that make them different. Number one, there's something in a 401k called a fiduciary responsibility. You were just asking, like, can I go to jail? I get in trouble.
Just asking.
You can get sued. You can get sued as the business owner that has a 401k. That has happened. It's actually not uncommon. I have not personally seen it in 15 years in a dental office. The 401k gets sued. Usually happens at very big corporations. And most of the time, it has been over the lack of investment options and over like fee transparency.
Okay.
In a 401k, though, there are 3 different fiduciary responsibilities that you can get sued for, like 3 different ways. Technically, in a court of law, you can get sued for. When you hire a third-party administrator, a cheaper one, a less expensive one, is going to have you as the owner of the business, the signer of the documents, be responsible for those things. So if there was a problem, a lawsuit, a fine, something you had to like do over again, it would be on your shoulders to like fix and take care of. If you hire a slightly more expensive third-party administrator, then if that happened and they take on the fiduciary responsibilities, then it's on them. Like it's all off your plate. It is very, actually, surprisingly, it's very uncommon that a third-party administrator for a 401k actually takes on all 3 fiduciary liabilities in a plan. It's actually kind of uncommon. It's more expensive for them. They have to have more insurance, more people. So anyway, that's a part of it. The investment options that you get inside of a 401k are going to vary. If you hire, if you do a 401k, let's say through an insurance company, you do your 401k through an insurance agent. That insurance company is going to give you investment options that are only mutual funds built by the insurance company, which are not historically great. Or you set up a 401k directly through a mutual fund company, let's say directly through Vanguard or American Funds. This isn't meaning they're bad or good. It just, when you set that up, your only investment options are going to be Vanguard or American Funds. And that might be fine with you, or you might want a bigger selection of that. So investment selection is another piece of that. And then there's the, setting people up, coordinating with payroll, filing all the stuff. That's what a third-party administrator does. So technically, when you set one of these up, you have to hire one of these companies, and they can be cheap or expensive or middle of the road. And what you were saying earlier, it kind of does depend on the size of your company, and how they bill. Some companies bill like a flat fee. Some companies bill a percentage of the accounts. Some do both. Most do both. And so you kind of have to weigh that, like, how do I make this cost effective while still covering my butt? If something happened, taking the work off my plate, I don't want to do a bunch of this paperwork. I don't want to be responsible for it. So there's so many companies out there. There's so many third-party administrator 401k companies. It can be a little confusing. So chatting with someone can, give you some clarity.
That was really helpful for me coming into this, because at the end of the day, I feel like something that is legal, something that I could as a business owner be responsible for, those are things that I hedge my bets against. And I try hard to be like, let's be more black and white, not gray on those areas. And so it was really helpful. I went through with someone else from my CPA. I went through with you. And really at the end of the day, my biggest objective was like, I want to be covered. I want to be safe, but I don't know how this is going to go. And clearly realizing that I think a brokerage account is gone, I'm sure you can only imagine how much I get stressed of like new fees in the company that I don't know. And I like to plan for worst case scenario. So that was actually why I opted, like you and I went through several different ones. I think I ended up looking through about 7 different options is what I ended up looking over. All of them have different percentages. All of them had different things. And the reason I opted for the one that I went with was because like annual fee, I feel is, I mean, I'm not here to say like $2,000's not a lot of money. I'm not here to try and be that. But when I look at a business expense, to me, that annual fee was negligible no matter which one I went. Like that did not
I think
bother
it is
me.
for most dentists too. I think that's true.
And then like the cost per participant again, but I was looking at fiduciary fee and advisor fee. And so while I wanted to go with another one, you and I both opted because looking at it, it cut my advisor fee less and it cut the fiduciary fee a lot less as well. And so based on those 2 things, I might have a little more cost per participant that I'll be paying. But to me, that's something that I can know for sure versus the percentage. Who knows how much is going to be contributed? Who knows how much of all those different pieces? So that was where I went with that. But I think, Ryan, some of the things I really struggled on and again, I'm going to pretend to be a client today, not pretend I actually am.
Just do you.
So I'll go through this of how you and I went through it, hopefully. So other people, like I came to you, we knew I needed to get this set up. Also something for timing that you helped me realize is I needed to have this basically decided by September because I want this in place in January. What are those deadlines? Because I don't actually know. I just know you said be ready by September. So I said, okay.
Yeah. Most of these companies, the actual deadline is, I think it's in October, and I don't remember if it's the beginning or the end of October. Most of these companies, and that's for like a January 1 start date of the next year. So most of these companies want to begin this process sometime in September just to make sure it's done and taken care of. Here's another thing I wanted to say too. When you pick these companies, that is what we were talking about earlier, and it's based on the complexity of a company, and that is, if someone needs just like a simple 401k, just a really straightforward, run of the mill kind of 401k, maybe you're starting it from scratch, small team, that's all you're going to need. I think it's fair to go try to find a lower cost 401k provider, as long as they're going to, take the work off your plate, keep you protected, and give you good investment selection. And those are all boxes we checked with you, right? Then we were able to go out and say, like, how can we keep our costs down? If someone has a bigger plan, bigger meaning more employees, bigger balances, and especially if someone is going to be in the realm of adding on top of the 401k a profit sharing plan or a pension plan, which is just a whole other plan on top of it that lets you put in even more money, but it's way more complex, then you do need to pick a third-party administrator, a 401k company that can handle that, because most of them are not built, especially like a lot of the lower cost, like online do-it-yourself stuff. They're not built with internal systems and employees to handle the design and compliance and testing of a bigger like profit sharing and pension plan. Where in your case, we're like, hey, we're not going to deal with that in the next 12 months, so it doesn't matter. In the future,
but that was
if we
also
do,
because you and I went, something I thought was really smart that you had us do is we actually went, because again, we're not sharing dental team's numbers here. But I am married. We have a house. I have tapped every possible thing. Like, we don't have kids. And so, like, short of me adopting a child, I really am tapped on my ideas of how to lower this. But you and I were talking because, well, that's not true. I have a second idea of Puerto Rico, which is like a whole nother conversation that
yeah,
Ryan,
but now we're talking about like
That's like,
lifestyle changes or second careers, or
this is my mixtape, guys. It's just on repeat. It's
okay.
Puerto Rico, Kiera retiring. How do we do this?
Yeah.
But I think, and don't worry, all of you listening, I'm not really retiring. I just have a stretch goal to see if I could actually do this and be financially secure by 40. But with that, you and I, we actually did talk about the pension plan, and we did talk about profit sharing.
We tested it. We ran numbers.
We went to look to see that actually, like, we looked at it and was like, well, how much will I save if I were to move to Puerto Rico? How much would we save if we switch states? And then you're like, well, let's just run the study and see, which was super cool because I didn't know that 401k companies did that. But my hunch is, and they do this every year, right? Like, how does this work? Because you test
not all of them do. No.
Okay, tell me about this.
So you have a normal 401k, which is like you put in some money from your paycheck, you get like a 4% match, pretty run of the mill stuff. The standard 401k out there is called a safe harbor. By the way, safe harbor.
And where did this come from 200 years ago?
That's also 200 years ago. That's also another word in the tax code, phrase in the tax code.
This is why it makes no sense, because taxes make no sense. So I understand now. Okay.
It's totally insane. It's literally in the 401k section, the 401 dash section K of the tax code. Safe harbor is the phrase that means, here's what it means. Hey, business owner, if you set up a 401k and you just give everyone like a 4% match, and you don't restrict anyone, like when they get their match, it's their money. You don't like hold it back from, there's no vesting schedule. You can't have super strict requirements of how they can and can't join the plan. Like the most strict you can get is like a year and 1,000 hours of working. In exchange for that, in this provision, the safe harbor thing says, we'll just let you bypass a whole bunch of testing and compliance testing. Because before, without safe harbor, here's the way it works. Let's say Kiera sets up a 401k. You put in the max. Next year, the max is $23,000. At the end of the year, they run a test and they go, ooh, your employees didn't put in enough compared to how much you put in. And so you didn't pass testing. Therefore, you have to go into your $23,000. You got to pull out 17 of it. And now instead of the full deduction, now you're only going to get a deduction of $6,000 because you didn't pass the testing. So the safe harbor provision lets you bypass testing as long as you do things like a match, and you don't restrict people too heavily from, their vesting schedules or how they can participate. So so that's what safe harbor means. I don't even know how we got on that. But to your question, not every company is equipped to do higher testing and adding profit sharing and pension.
Interesting.
And it's a whole separate, a lot of times they have on staff ERISA attorneys. They're basically 401k attorneys and actuaries. And these are the people who run their very specific IRS formulas that tell you, hey, if me as an owner put in this much in profit sharing or as a pension, how much do I have to give each employee? And how does that look? And there's a certain threshold of where that makes sense and doesn't make sense. So we ran that for you through a company that was really helpful. They're equipped to do this. They're a bigger company. They're equipped to handle bigger plans like that. A lot of companies are definitely not. And so when a plan gets to that point, you might have to switch to a different third-party administrator, and that's okay. But to your point, we were curious about it, and we had this company run it for us, and we determined that didn't make sense right now. So, we'll visit it again another time. We can look at it every single year, actually.
And what was really helpful is I feel like their reports, I'm no actuary. My brother-in-law actually is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the heck those reports even said. So I mean, Ryan, I trust you clearly a lot because I said, so is this a good decision or a bad decision? Because I honestly don't know what this is saying. And so that's where I actually thought it was really helpful to work with you on it. Was I don't know who to ask. I didn't know what questions to ask. And so you were able to have them run the test, and then we realized like it didn't work. And so honestly, I'll probably work with that company in the future when I'm bigger and we've got a more complex plan, and we'll run it every year to see, because like you said, some years it will make more sense, which I don't even know how you get it to make more sense. It's like based on the census of the people I have. I knew it.
Yeah, that's why every year, and it's kind of funny how it'll change. Like you can get 1 year older and change someone in your payroll, and it will either make it like really good or really bad. Because the IRS formulas use like an age-weighted formula that takes that into account. So the bigger disparity between the owner's age and the average of the employees, the more it's going to work out in your favor as an owner. And the younger you are, or closer to their age, then usually it's not. That's why most people doing profit sharing or pension plans are usually at least in their late 40s, if not in their 50s and above.
So that's actually because most of my employees are pretty close to my age. We've got a little bit of like a 10-year span between all of us, which isn't big enough, but it was super helpful for me.
That's what did it for you. That's what ruined it for you, was the age disparity or the lack of it.
And so I know a lot of newer owners and newer offices, you tend to have employees that are similar to your age because you're basically the age of working class at that point. And I'm guessing it will kind of start to shift and change. So that was helpful because like it came of like there's like honestly, when I went through a presentation with someone else telling me about it, it was like, Kiera, you can get the traditional 401k. You can get the traditional with the safe harbor plan. You can get the safe harbor matching plan with profit sharing. Then you can get the safe harbor. Then you can get the match of 4% and 5%. And 5% is based on what I put away. Then I can apply a vesting schedule. Then I can do profit sharing is not a requirement of this. Then I can get a defined. I'm like literally reading my notes of what I took. And I was like, I don't even understand. And then they're like, and then there's a record keeper. And then there's this person. And then this fee goes to the employee. And I'm like, Ryan, I feel like I'm going to choose the wrong choice because I don't even know what
it's a lot.
Any of this says.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's overwhelming. Every time I do one for a client, I'm like, it feels like a necessary evil, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. And they are expensive. I mean, it's just a whole other company you have to hire. And but the math, though, is pretty straightforward. I mean, the math, especially if an owner can put a spouse on payroll, which talk to your CPA about that, it's very common. Then the math is like, it's a no-brainer.
But isn't it true? Because like Jason and I, we are both working. And so Jason, even though Jason does my events, he's surely on payroll for events. But with that, I can't max him in dental AT's 401k because he's already maxed in his hospital's 401k. And so, but like if you have a spouse that's not working, I do think it's a no-brainer. Or if they're on payroll, like you said, with CPAs, I think it can definitely cut down some costs that people might not think of that could definitely help boost your 401k for you as an owner. That I just thought was really interesting. So I did not enjoy the process. I actually have done 2 grown-up things this year.
Process. Yeah.
Right. I've done 2 grown-up things. I did my will and made a trust, which that was big. And then I did a 401k.
Yep.
The 401k was way harder than the will. Even though I had to figure out
That's crazy.
What's going to happen when I die and who am I going to send this to? Because I had to choose 2 people. And I told Jason, listen, if I'm out for 2 weeks, I'm gone. Get a younger, hotter wife, move along. It's fine. Go. Everything's fine. I don't want to
take my money.
It's fine. But the 401k, I just think it was so many terms that I didn't know. And I felt very naive. And I felt very this is something I've got to now file new tax laws. I've got to figure out, and I don't want to get in trouble with Arissa. That sounds like a really mean girl and I don't want to fight with her. It just felt daunting. The name Arissa, it's like Marissa, but Arissa,
or Carissa. We're not judging Marissas and Carissas.
If someone's named Arissa out there, I'd love to meet you. But that kind of sounds like I'm going to erase you out of my life. And I'm like,
yeah,
gosh,
Ryan,
they
would too. Yeah,
they probably would. And then it was scary because I thought there's somewhere you just do an automatic where every person on your payroll gets it. and I was trying to figure out pros and cons of all that. So I really appreciated like being able to ask all my questions, being able to like, and I am actually excited. Like once we solidified, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
the process was bad. I just think it was more,
It's a pain.
so many things that I don't even know what is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I know which one to choose that's best for my company?
Yep.
And also like it's my first year. I have no clue what this cost is going to be on the company. I don't know what it's going to run. And so being able to make that as the best decision was kind of daunting. So I am curious because I don't know this. Now I'm a real client. We're having a real
let's
call
go.
here.
Yeah, these are live questions. So these are organic.
Now I'm on to next step.
I didn't supply these to you. I have no idea what you're
didn't.
going to ask me. Yeah, this is good.
So my question is, based on the plan I set up, because we went with just a traditional 401k with Safe Harbor,
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to, as an employer, go to my max amount of 401k.
Mm-hmm.
For my employees, I
Mhm.
only match them if they put in, and my employees don't have to just put in 4%. They can go up to 10%, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they
And
can go up to as much as they want until they've hit the limit, the dollar limit, which is $23,000.
Okay. So,
Mhm.
and then I would match them up to 4%, but they have to put it in first before I
Yes.
match.
Yeah.
And even if, let's say, none of my employees decide to take this up, I would not get any penalties because I'm in a safe harbor and I should still
Exactly.
be able to match my full amount. Is that right?
There you go. You explained it perfectly. Yep.
Wow.
You did. See, you actually learned everything there was to learn through this whole process. It just was really annoying and super overwhelming.
Okay, but
And
I
you're
have
right,
one
it
other
is.
question because
Yeah.
this one makes my mind feel funny.
Okay.
Because it really because technically I'm an employee of Dental A Team,
Mm-hmm.
and technically I'm the employer of Dental A Team.
Mm-hmm.
So how does a match work? I'm guessing I don't get a match. I'm guessing I just do 4% or up
No,
to
your company
like-
matches you. It's your own money.
right. So
Yeah.
this feels funny to me. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like wearing two hats, like Dr. Jekyll
Yeah.
and Mr. Hyde. Like
So you
I'm-
still get a match. You'll max out your 401k, and then your match will be 4% of your salary. That's how the match works. Up to that's the ceiling of the match that your company's going to give you. So whatever your salary is, you're going to get 4% of that. Up to, I mean, it can't go over what you put in, and it won't anyway. It wouldn't. The match wouldn't. But your company will match you. But it is your money. I mean, if it didn't match you, but it's
So, guys, you were literally
But this is a
experiencing Kiera
deduction. So
in
here's
real
what's
life.
cool, though. That
Yeah.
4% that your company's going to match you for your contributions is a deduction, where if you didn't get a match and you pulled out that 4% as income through net distributions,
Oh.
it's taxable. So
Interesting. Okay. So now everybody's watching me in real life try to figure out this.
this is awesome. Yeah. Very organic.
Because this is our real calls. So
Yeah,
I hope you guys are enjoying them. We'll just hit
Yeah.
record from here on
We
out.
should
right?
just start
Every call.
recording. I wonder if clients would ever just say yes to that, because I feel like so many people, we should start like a mastermind where we just do like one-on-one.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
this is a thing. So the max next year is going to be like, we'll say
It's
23,000.
23,000. Unless you're over 50.
But I don't understand how this 23,000 works. Does that mean like I can contribute 23,000 and then the company will also match? So I could technically get more than 23,000?
Yeah, you will.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, that was what
You'll
I
get-
needed.
you'll get
I can go up to
23,000. Yeah, you'll get 23,000 here. I'm going to do the catch up. It's 23,000 next year, and if you're over 50, the catch up contribution. Let's see, what are they changing it to? $7,500. So if you're over 50, you get your 23,000 plus $7,500.
Okay.
There is a new change with that. Some of it's still kind of unknown, but there's a new change where the catch up contribution has to be Roth 401ks.
Interesting.
And it's not pre-tax, but it's $23,000. What was even your question?
So the
23,000
23,000 and then
yes.
4% of your salary that the company would match.
up to yeah.
But up to what? I think it's
Well,
up to,
well,
like,
let's say your salary is $100,000.
okay.
You put in 23,000, you're getting
Yes.
$4,000 from your company.
Okay.
If your
So then I
salary is
get a total of
$200,000,
27.
yes. If your salary is $200,000, you're putting in your 23, and then you're getting $8,000 from the company.
And employees can also only, unless they're over 55, can only do 23,000 next year.
Yes.
That would be the max they
out
could
of their own
contribute.
paycheck. Yes, and then
Mhm.
the company gives them up to 4% of their salary if they've put in that much money too.
So you told me something else, which I'm going to just ask here live.
Mm.
There was something I'm like, this 3% and then the last 4% is like
Mhm.
something weird. How does that happen?
Yeah.
Because really I could only be doing 3%, but I don't understand what the new rule is. Like,
Mhm.
what is that?
So there's various ways you can set up the match we'll just keep it on the safe harbor, because if you get rid of safe harbor, you literally can design 401k plans. And this is how they used to be. You can design them kind of however you want. You can
Right.
exclude people, but then that testing comes in at the end of the year and it can get kind of gnarly. So in a safe harbor, we'll start with 3%. You can elect to give away 3% no matter if people participate or not. Why would you do that? Some people would do that if it's part of the bonus structure that's very well like integrated, and it's like it's acknowledged, people know it's part of their benefits package. They might do that. For people who are running profit sharing consistently every single year, having that 3% giveaway can actually make the profit sharing a little bit more efficient, skewed to the owner, the way that the formulas work. So if someone has profit sharing, it's happening every single year, that 3% giveaway can actually be a benefit. But that's a plan design thing later. You can do the 4% match, but here's what's kind of funny. You can do it like a straight 4. Like you just, you match them 100% on the first 4% of their contributions. Or to make it a little bit more efficient for the owner, not as expensive, you can do a 4%, but they do it like this. They do the first 3% that the person puts in gets matched at 100%. And then the fourth and fifth percent that they put in get matched at 50%. So if you add them all up, you get a 4% match, but the employee has to put in 5% of their paycheck to get a 4% match. It makes it a little bit cheaper. But that's a totally acceptable legal safe harbor provision. And a lot of people select that too. So just makes it makes the match expense a little cheaper to the business.
Right. Because then the employee has to put more in before the business has to pay that extra. Right.
Exactly.
Okay. That's helpful. So I think my final takeaway of all of 401k is, so when you read the rules to Risk or Monopoly,
I have no patience for board game rules.
That's how I feel like the tax code is. Like, who made up this safe harbor? And then they're like, oh, by the way, let's add one more. Like, it'll be 3% for the first one, but then for the next 4 and 5, it's only 0.5%. Like, I feel like the most psychotic Monopoly game designer is who wrote the tax code.
Tax code's insane. It's insane.
Bottom line is, use Ryan, use Dennis Advisors. It was really helpful. I feel less stressed. And that was actually super helpful. So I hope for everyone listening, there are so many different plans. And what I think my greatest takeaway from all of what we did was I loved the confidence of you running it for me to see, does a pension plan make sense? Because I was terrified to put that in play. But if I could offset, knowing I was only wanting to run it for X amount of time, would it offset? So that was super fun to figure out. Then it was also like, do I just set up a regular 401k with no safe harbor on it? And what's the risk benefit? Could I even qualify on that to set up more of a vesting period or things like that? And then to realize safe harbor for me was the best option with a cheaper one based on the number of people I have, and noticing that I don't need the higher level 401k company, but knowing that every year, I'm guessing come August, you and I get to hang out every year. We run the test on me again, see. So I think I like cadences, Ryan. And so I know I meet with my CPA in July and September to make sure I'm on track for tax spending. I now think I'm just going to plug in August as my 401k, make sure that that's ready to go for end of year. And if I need to change, I've got time to do it.
Yeah. And I think everyone should do exactly what you're talking about. And I think most CPAs and financial advisors, if they're good ones, they would love to talk to each other. Because I just got off a client call this morning where my client has not been contributing to their retirement plan for 3 years, but it's because he built a giant building and has so many deductions for the next 7 years that it doesn't make sense to put it in the 401k. We're just doing it after paying the tax, because last year he had a 0 tax rate. It was 0% because of all his write-offs. So that's a great plan. Talk about it once a year. You never know if it's time to change, if you still have the right one, if you're maxing it out, if you should stop contributing, if a spouse has some kind of change. Something you said earlier, there are certain types of government retirement plans. There's 457, 403bs, 401ks. These are all just tax code provisions, and healthcare systems, education systems, and government systems will have different types. Most of the time, the limit, it doesn't matter how many jobs you have, you can only put in 23,000, right? But there are types of plans that can be combined with a 401k. So someone could have a job with a 401k and then have a government job with a different type of retirement plan, and they can do both, max out both. So to your point, talk about it once a year, like
Mhm.
life changes, career changes, spouse career changes, those things like
Laws
alter
change.
law.
Like,
Well, and there's more changing for next year too.
right. You and I were
Yeah.
even just setting this up literally yesterday. We were setting up my 401k, and remember how it's like
Yeah.
enhanced safe harbor. And you're like, what the heck?
Like, why do they
Enhanced
call
on
it
there.
that? I'm like, oh yeah, that's the new rules coming for next year. Like the
Mhm.
same with the catch-up contributions. They used to be pre-tax if you're over 50, and now the new rules are making you do them Roth after tax next year.
So interesting. So that's where I feel this is just me. I wanted to thank you, Ryan, for one, being in my life for this. And two, I thought it would just be a fun podcast for you guys to hear in
Oh
real
yeah.
time. Me learning. This is me learning with Ryan.
Real questions.
They are.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And so helping you guys just get a glimpse into what it was. But I do think like chat with your financial advisor, chat with your CPA. To me, it was really, really helpful though, Ryan. You know where my life I want it to go more than my CPA does. Like you and I are sitting here constantly every month talking about where am I headed? What are my goals? Which I think helped you and I have a better decision on the 401k because you know my short-term and long-term plans.
Yeah.
Therefore, we could make the plan work for us. So I would just say
Cool.
reach out, chat with, who do you chat with first? You go with CPA or financial advisor, Ryan? Like what's
Both.
I did both.
Yeah, both of them make sense. They're gonna have just different perspectives on what they're trying to accomplish. To your point, you might have someone that has investments for you, but they don't know your life because they're not like a planner, which is okay
Mhm.
if they're just doing investments for you. But someone who knows your life is going to know how to integrate things like the product. My industry's backwards because my industry's been built on the products driving the plan because that's where commissions are paid.
Right.
But a good planner, like advisor situation, is more like a good coach. It's almost like a good money therapist situation. Like the plan drives the product. Your life and what you need and want determines what products we go implement, not the other way around. So if you have a good like advisor, coach person, then that's a good conversation with your CPA because you might learn a few things about your tax liability for any given year that might inform you of a different decision. So
Right.
both.
And I definitely
Yeah.
chatted with both.
Uh-huh.
But like you said, something I just value in you, and this is like me giving you a true compliment on a podcast. I just have a super appreciated that like the number of times you've walked me off the ledge to not sell the business, which I found is like every other day as a business owner, like this is just real life. Just like our
relatable.
emotions change, just like the weather
Totally.
changes. But you keeping me on track, I think is invaluable that I never realized that a financial planner could and would do. Like you said, a money therapist. I mean, the number of calls you and I have had, the number of things we've talked about,
Yeah.
the number of times I'm like, Ryan, I'm ready to go off. And like I said, it's the conversation on repeat of a favorite playlist from
normal.
before.
Everyone
And we
does
just
it.
keep having it.
We
And
all
so
do it.
So I
Yeah.
just think kudos that way. And if you guys are in
Thank you.
that boat, definitely reach out. I think you guys are very, very approachable. I feel like we're very similar styles. Like there's no judgment in your practice. I think there's no judgment in your financial life with dentist advisors. And so if you're thinking about 401k, like I had no clue. This was me and Ryan having a conversation 4 years ago, telling me to do a SEP for 3 years and then 401k would come into play. So this has been
Thank
4
you.
years in the making. So thank you.
I'm excited. Thank you very much. And this is going to our audience too. So I will say the same thing, which is something I deeply appreciate is that kind of like consultative nature. I mean, and human nature. The reason why A Team is so successful is because it's not just that you have strategy, but you can help people stick to strategy, which just that's a product of having data and frequent enough communication and staying on top of things. And that's why we send you clients, because it's not just strategy, but it's human behavior of can you stick to that strategy. So much love to the A Team. You guys do a fantastic job.
Well, there's mutual love between both companies. I feel like we're sister companies, and Brian and I were brothers and sisters in another life.
Yeah.
So for those of you guys looking, be sure to reach out to dentist advisors. Ryan, how can they connect with you if they're interested?
dentistadvisors.com, and I'll always field an email. Ryan@dentistadvisors.com. Email me. Let's do this.
And if you put dental A Team in the subject, he'll definitely
I'll totally answer.
Faster.
Copy Kiera, and I'll be like, I'll for sure answer. What about you? How do they find the A Team?
You can email hello@thedentalateam.com. That's a little bit easier than Kiera, but always email Kiera, Kiera @thedentalateam.com. Listen to the podcast. Come join us. Any way we can help you guys be more financially secure and be more business confident, practice confident. That's what we're here for. So Ryan, thank you. It was a great time.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it as always.
All right. All of you listening, thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time on the Dental A Team podcast. And that
that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental 18 podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.